Golf course superintendents have a number they don't print on the bag: $3. That's roughly what it costs them to feed 1,000 square feet of turf the way they actually do it. Not with the granular bags the fertilizer industry sells you every spring, but with a soluble mix sprayed straight onto the blade. They call it spoon feeding. The big box bag model can't sell it to you, because nobody profits off a homeowner mixing his own. I spent 2 seasons testing it against the bag on my own Bermuda here in Plano. The mix won every time: deeper color, faster green up, less waste. And stay with me, because there's one cheap ingredient I add to the tank that makes the nitrogen stick instead of washing away. Let me name the people who buried this, because it's not a faceless they. It's the slow-release coated granular fertilizer industry, and it's the big box 4-step season program sitting on a pallet in every hardware store from now through October. That model has a starting point you can actually look up. Back in the 1960s and 70s, researchers at the TVA, the Tennessee Valley Authority, ran a national fertilizer development center, and that's where sulfur-coated urea came out of. Coating nitrogen, so it releases slow. Smart chemistry. But here's the thing. That coating is what turned plain nitrogen into a bagged convenience product. Once you can wrap a granule in sulfur and polymer, you can put a brand on it, put a bag around it, and sell a homeowner a 4-step program he buys again every single spring. Now here's the math that ought to bother you. The average homeowner spends $150 to $200 a season, sometimes more, feeding 3,000 or 4,000 square feet of grass out of those coated bags. The golf course superintendent feeding that same square footage. He's running it at roughly $3 per 1,000 square feet. Same grass, same nitrogen, a fraction of the cost. And he's not dumping a big slug of granular that leaches straight through heavy clay the first time it rains. He's metering it out a little at a time. They call it spoon feeding, and it's the standard on every putting green you've ever walked across. Understand what I'm telling you? This isn't some mystery chemical the industry is hiding in a vault. It's a delivery method, a way of feeding the lawn that the bag economy simply can't package and sell to you, because the thing they're charging you for is the coating and the bag, not the food the grass actually eats. So it never made it to the homeowner aisle. Let's walk through what it actually is. Spoon feeding is exactly what it sounds like. Instead of dumping a season's worth of nitrogen on the lawn in one heavy granular feeding, you give it small, frequent doses, dissolved in water and sprayed straight onto the blade. Little spoonfuls, that's the whole idea. The grass gets fed a steady trickle of food at a rate it can actually use, instead of choking down a feast and then starving for 6 weeks until the next bag. Here's the mix. The base is soluble urea. That's 4600 on the label, meaning 46% nitrogen, nothing else. It dissolves clean in water with a little stirring. If you want sulfur in the mix, and down here in our alkaline clay you usually do, you can run feed-grade ammonium sulfate instead, which is 2100. Either one works. You dissolve it into 1 to 2 gallons of water per 1,000 square feet, and you spray it over the turf with a backpack sprayer. I use my Chapin 4-gallon, and I calibrate it before every single application. I want to know exactly how much water I'm putting down over a measured area because that's how you know your rate. Read the label every time. Now, the rate is the part most homeowners would get wrong if they ever heard about this, so let me be precise. You're applying somewhere between 1/10 and 1/4 pound of actual nitrogen per 1,000 square feet per application. The sweet spot is right around 0.2 pounds of nitrogen, which works out to a little under 1/2 pound of urea dissolved in your water. And you do that every 10 to 14 days through the active growing season. That's it. Small dose, 2-week rhythm, sprayed on the leaf. This is the standard on every bent grass in Bermuda putting green in the country. It just never made it to the bag aisle because there's no bag involved. Now here's where it gets interesting, because you might be wondering how spraying food on a leaf even works. This is the mechanism, and it's the reason this method can't be debunked. only buried. Grass doesn't just eat through its roots. The leaf blade has a waxy outer layer called the cuticle, and it's dotted with tiny pores called stomata. When you lay a thin film of dissolved nitrogen across that blade, the plant pulls a meaningful share of it straight in through the leaf. Foliar uptake, the turf scientists call it. The rest drips down to the soil and gets taken up by the roots. So you're feeding both ends of the plant at once. And because the dose is small, the grass uses nearly all of it before it has a chance to wash away. There's almost nothing left over to leach down past the root zone. Compare that to a granular slug sitting on top of heavy clay, waiting for the first hard rain to carry half of it straight down past the roots and into the storm drain. This isn't fringe science. It's sound agronomy practiced at the highest level of turf management. They can't tell you it doesn't work, because the best lawns on earth are fed this exact way. They can only make sure you never find out it's an option. Now let's talk about the power of this thing, because this is where the number from the start of the video comes home. Here's the math. Soluble urea runs you around 50 cents a pound of product. At a 0.2 of a pound nitrogen rate, you're spraying somewhere around 20 to 25 cents of nitrogen over 1,000 square feet per application. A quarter. Add in iron and a surfactant. I'll get to both. And a homeowner application lands somewhere between $1 and $3 per 1,000 square feet. That's the real version of the golf course $3 number. There's bundles in iron and a whole menu of micronutrients on a putting green budget, but the principle is identical. Now hold that up against the big box 4-step season program. $150, $200, and up for a year of coated bags. You're paying 100 times the cost of the food itself, and most of that money is buying coating and convenience. This is exactly the kind of math the bag economy would rather you never sit down and do. And it's not just cheaper, it works better, and I've got 2 seasons of my own front yard to prove it. I split my Bermuda 419 here in Plano and ran spoon feeding against a standard granular program, side by side, for 2 full growing seasons. The spoon-fed sections showed deeper, more even color within 3 to 5 days of every spray. The granular side took 10 to 14 days to respond, and the color came in patchier. The spoon-fed turf never threw a growth flush. No surge of top growth choking the mower, which meant I was actually mowing less, not more. And the waste difference was night and day. The small foliar doses got used up. The granular side leached after every heavy rain, which means I was literally watering my money into the clay. The mix won every time. Deeper color, faster green up, less waste. The bag lost because the bag is built to dump a big nitrogen load all at once. That drives a flush of soft top growth and leaches badly in clay and rain, while spoon feeding meters it out at exactly the rate the plant pulls it in. Once you've watched it happen in your own yard, you understand why no superintendent on a real budget would ever do it the bag way. And you understand why you were never told. Now, here's the layer. Even some folks who've heard of spoon feeding don't fully get. That deep, almost bluish golf course green, the color that makes a fairway look painted, that is not coming from nitrogen. It's coming from iron. Nitrogen makes the grass grow. Iron makes it dark without pushing growth. And that's the secret to the look. So into the same tank you add ferrous sulfate at about 2 ounces per 1,000 square feet. Or a chelated iron if your water is hard and you don't want it tying up. That gives you color without forcing a single extra mow. This is the move that separates a lawn that's merely well-fed from a lawn that stops the neighbors at the mailbox. But iron and nitrogen both have a hard rule, and if you break it, you'll burn the lawn, so listen close. Keep your nitrogen at or below a 1/4 pound per 1,000 square feet every time. That ceiling is your safety margin. Spray in the early morning or the evening, when the air is below about 85 degrees. And never ever spray a foliar feed onto drought-stressed turf in the heat of the day. A stressed blade in full sun will scorch where the droplets sit. I learned the temperature lesson the careful way, watching how cool season turf responded to a foliar product applied during heat stress versus applied at 70 degrees in the early morning. The difference was the whole result. Always read your soil and air temperature before you ever fill the tank. Get the timing right, and this is the safest, most forgiving feeding you'll ever do. Get it wrong in 98-degree afternoon sun, and you'll wish you'd waited 3 hours. None of which, by the way, is anywhere on the side of a bag, because the bag was designed so you'd never have to think about any of it, and never know what you were missing. If what I'm showing you today is clicking, and you're starting to realize that everything you were told about feeding a lawn was backwards, then you're ready for the bigger idea behind it. Spoon feeding is feeding the lawn from the top down, building it from above instead of dumping and walking away. That same principle, building from the top down, is the entire foundation of my book, Larry's 30-Day Weed Kill Protocol. Chapter 6. That's Phase 3, Building Soil on Top, lays out exactly how you feed and build turf from above so it grows thick. And a thick, well-fed lawn is the only permanent weed defense there is. Not another spray. Not another tip you try once and forget. A real permanent fix for folks who are exhausted by the cycle. It's 88 pages, $17, over at larrysgardenbooks.com. If you're watching on your TV right now, go ahead and grab your phone and point the camera at the QR code on the screen. Take your time finding it. I'll be right here. And if you're on your phone or laptop already, just tap the link down in the description. All right, let's talk about why this got buried in the first place. Here's the thing. The money in the bag aisle was never in the nitrogen. Soluble urea is a commodity, about 50 cents a pound of product, sitting on a pallet, no brand, no story. Nobody builds a business selling you 50-cent commodity. So back at that TVA National Fertilizer Development Center I told you about, they coated it. Sulfur first, then polymers later, so the granule release is slow over weeks. That coating is the product. That's what you're paying for. The nitrogen inside is the same cheap stuff in my tank, and once you wrap nitrogen in a coating and a glossy bag, you can sell convenience at a multiple. You can sell a 4-step program. You can sell a spring bag, a summer bag, a fall bag, a winterizer. The same square footage, 4 times a season, season after season. That's recurring revenue. Here's the math the model can't survive. A homeowner who buys one 50-pound bag of urea and a backpack sprayer feeds the whole lawn for a couple of dollars and never walks back into that aisle. There's no business in a customer who buys once and leaves. There's a structural reason too, and I want to be straight with you about it. Spoon feeding needs a calibrated sprayer and a little timing knowledge. Soil temperature, air temperature, rate. The bag model is built to remove exactly that friction. It sells you no skill. Spread it and walk away. That's genuinely easier, and I'm not going to pretend otherwise. So let me give the bag its fair due. Granular is more convenient. It's harder to burn a lawn with because the coating meters the release for you. If you'll never own a sprayer and never check a thermometer, a coated bag is a reasonable choice, and I'd rather you feed with that than not feed at all. Soluble feeding asks you to pay attention to rate and temperature. That's real. But here's what I want you to walk away with. Every spring you've bought a coated bag, the grass ate maybe a couple dollars worth of actual nitrogen. The rest of that $40 went to the coating, the bag, and the marketing that told you it was complicated. It was never complicated. It was a delivery method that doesn't fit on a pallet, so it never made it to your aisle. Now let me give you the 1-cent piece I promised you up top, the ingredient I add to the tank that makes the nitrogen stick instead of washing away. It's a non-ionic surfactant, a spreader sticker. And the cheap version sitting in your kitchen right now is a few drops of plain unscented dish soap per gallon of mix. That's it. Here's why it matters. Water beads. Drop a spray of plain water on a grass blade and it pulls itself into little balls, rolls right off the waxy leaf, and drips down into the soil. where it leaches past the root zone and you've fed the dirt, not the plant. The surfactant breaks that surface tension. Instead of beating, the droplet flattens out into a thin film and clings to the blade. And because spoon feeding is foliar, the grass is drinking through the leaf. Holding that film on the blade longer means far more of the nitrogen actually gets absorbed before the next rain or your irrigation rinses it off. That's the difference between spraying and praying, and actually getting the nitrogen into the plant. A couple of practical notes. You need a tiny amount, a few drops per gallon. More is not better. Dump in too much and all you get is foam climbing out of the tank, not better coverage. Add it last, after the urea and the iron are already dissolved. And skip it if a hard rain is coming in the next hour. No film survives a downpour. This is the kind of penny trick that makes $2 of urea outperform a $40 bag, which is exactly why the bag aisle has no reason on earth to ever tell you about it. Before I let you go, if today made you realize you've been fighting your lawn the wrong way, the same way you've probably been fighting weeds the wrong way, that's the whole reason I wrote the book. Everything the bag told you about fertilizer was backwards, and everything the conventional advice tells you about weeds is backwards in the exact same way. Chapter 1 is called Why Everything You Know About Weeds is Wrong, and it lays out the prevention-first paradigm the entire system is built on. A permanent fix, not another tip you try once and toss. It's Larry's 30-day weed kill protocol. $17 over at larrysgardenbooks.com. If you're on your TV, grab your phone and point the camera at the QR code on screen. Go ahead, take your time finding it. I'll wait right here. And if you're already on your phone or laptop, just click the link down in the description. All right, here's the takeaway. Soluble urea at about 0.2 pounds of nitrogen per 1,000 square feet, sprayed straight on the blade every 10 to 14 days, with a little iron for color and a few drops of dish soap to make it stick. That's golf course turf for a couple of dollars instead of $200. Now you know the number the bag won't print, and you'll never overpay for a coating again. Next time I'm going to show you the soil temperature signal that beats the calendar every time for timing your pre-emergent. Another one the bag wants you to get wrong. Go mix a tank and spray a test strip this week. You'll see the color in 5 days. I'll see you in the next one.